Welcome to the Yoga Therapy Hour, Season 7. We are so happy that you've been here on the journey with us for almost 2 years now, and we're looking at over 130,000 downloads. It has been a wonderful run together, and we are going to continue to provide excellent content. And this season, we want to go into the depths of the human experience and the human heart. So stay tuned. We're going to continue this journey together, and we look forward to seeing you for all of Season 7. Good morning, everyone. So nice to be with you again today. This is Amy Wheeler, and I'm doing a solo episode today. I had a little extra time, and I was just thinking about the yoga world and all the craziness that is going on in the yoga world. I should tell you that today is September 25th, 2024, and it seems to me that the ground is moving underneath our feet. Things are changing, not just every day, but hour by hour. So what you hear me say today could be debunked, or more information could come in, or decisions could be made. But I just thought it might be nice to have a little marker about the yoga world and what's happening in it right now and how chaotic it is, frankly. So first, let's start with this, I guess you would call it a questionnaire we got from Yoga Alliance, many of us that are Yoga Alliance members. And we got to have kind of a peek at their strategic plan and what they're planning to do. And it seems to me, just from what I could gather from that beautiful brochure they sent out, that kind of had the rough or the vague draft of the strategic plan, it seems like they're really wanting to reach out into communities, into healthcare, into wellness centers. And of course, they're not going to call it yoga therapy because they don't like the word yoga therapy. We've all known that for decades now. But it is interesting how many of us have perceived them to be kind of a registration body for a long time, where we all go to get our 200-hour, 300-hour, 500-hour, and more. We go there to get our continuing education hours. And it seems very teacher focused, right? That we're going to train teachers. We're going to help teachers make a living. They can, have their students come and apply. And what I got from the strategic plan going forward was it was really about how are we going to make a difference in society? And that paired with the very, very interesting questionnaire that they put out. Okay, so I want to read you some of the things that they have said, and I think they're fascinating. It says, "Dear valued Yoga Alliance member, earlier this year, we shared our 2024 to 2030, so that's a 6-year period, strategic plan. In it, we outlined 3 foundational commitments to anchor and guide our priorities over the next 7 years. We also described how we envision living into these commitments. One pillar of the commitment is to build, engage, and support community." All right. So they're going to break that down now. What does this mean? Developing deep relationships with and among members to deliver a greater value. So that's one of their priorities. A second one is centering yoga teachers and wisdom holders to serve as reliable advocates for yoga and those who share its teachings. And then third, expanding membership options to welcome and serve in all stages of the yoga journey. And again, those are very vague, right? But the rest of the document does help us try to get a clue. Where might they be going with this? They say, this summer, we invited practitioners, teachers, community leaders, and experts in education to collaborate in shaping the future of Yoga Alliance membership and credentials. All right, so right there, as much as people have complained about Yoga Alliance, the fact that they're willing to talk to us and take surveys with us, feel our vibe, know what we'd like, know what we wouldn't like, and take that into consideration as they move forward, for me, that's all I need to see. And they're a nonprofit. They're a 501c6, which means that they are responsible to their members. We are part of their community, and they actually need to talk to us. So that is a really amazing thing to have them doing, the forethought to ask us ahead of time instead of just telling us. In the past, I hate to say it, but Yoga Alliance has pretty much told us what they're going to do. And I really love this change of being in relationship with us. I don't think Yoga Alliance is perfect. I think many people have many things to say about Yoga Alliance, but all I'm saying right now is that I appreciate the idea that we could be in relationship together. So let's move on to some other things that they said that are really fascinating. So they say, we value your perspective and want to ensure that the future changes align with the community's needs and aspirations. Here are 3 steps you can take to inform the future. 1, complete the feedback survey. The survey includes important questions that will inform our approach. Number 2, share with your network. Help us reach a broader audience by sharing the survey with other yoga teachers and business owners. And 3, stay engaged. We will keep you updated on the progress and outcomes of this initiative. And then they, basically give gratitude for all the people that have helped them come to this. So then we go to the survey, and this is where I think it gets really interesting. You got to get your hands on this survey and fill it out if you can. It says, we are seeking feedback to help us shape the future of credentials, resources, and services. So again, I like that. I know some of you are going to come at me and say, well, but Yoga Alliance did this, that. Okay, I understand. But the fact that they're asking us, that is right in alignment with yoga ethics. I just have to say that. All right, so they start off on the survey and say, are you in a Yoga Alliance? And you could say yes or no. I like it that they're allowing people who aren't even registered as Yoga Alliance, maybe future people interested in being part of the community, to speak. And then they say, are you a 200 hour? Are you a 500 hour? Are you a owner of a lead training program? Do you have a school? All those types of things, because that matters to know which stakeholders. You can break that data down and say, oh, so the people who own schools hate this idea, but the other people love this idea. The new people or the old people, meaning the new people to the organization and the people who've been in the organization for 20 years, to be able to break that data out and look at which stakeholders believe one way versus the other is really pretty amazing to know what's going on. All right, so then we go into what they're calling a credentialing survey, and they want to know if we like how they're credentialing. So they're asking all sorts of questions, and let me find the ones that I think are most relevant and most interesting to our conversation. Says the new registered yoga teacher trainer credential would assess a yoga teacher trainer's skill in teaching, assessing, and mentoring. The prerequisite, including 500 hours of training rooted in yoga philosophy and tradition, plus the recommendation from a mentor, the exam administered through Yoga Alliance would cover the following topics. Okay, so do you hear what they're saying or what they're considering for the future? If you want to be a yoga teacher trainer, instead of just saying, I've got all these hours and, of training, they would actually look at what is the philosophy that you're upholding, yoga philosophy, what tradition are you in? Do you have recommendations from a mentor? So do you have relationships? And can you actually pass an exam about yoga philosophy and these different topics? So they're really looking at the skill of the teacher trainers to make sure people are qualified to even be teaching this stuff. And so from there, the examination topics that these teacher trainers would have to, take the test on are pedagogical techniques. That's basically, can you be an effective teacher? Mentorship and leadership, curriculum development, effective communication skills, inclusive teaching practices, and business and professional development. Now that's fascinating because most of those don't have a whole lot to do with the actual content of yoga. They're saying to be a teacher trainer, you need to go way above that. There's a whole lot of things you need to know about business and communication and inclusion and then they go on to ask, are there any other topics that we might be missing? What else do people need to know? So that also is fascinating. They're really trying to get down, I think, to, are we just pumping out yoga teachers without yoga ethics, without the yoga foundation? Has it become the yoga industrial complex? Have we basically colonialized yoga and just are taking out the pieces we want to sell them off for profit? I feel like maybe this is a good thing that the Yoga Alliance is doing. So again, there's way more to be seen, but really this is laying the foundation for the framework of what I want to talk about today, which is yoga ethics. And as a leader of a nonprofit organization, a leader of a corporation, I'm even going to advocate out there because I believe that corporations should also follow this rule, although I'm well aware that they probably don't, that their profit is the bottom line and people are not the bottom line. That's how most corporations are run. And in fact, some corporations even have it in their bylaws that they must choose profit over people. But let's even just stay with you as the director of a teacher training, or you as a business person, or a yoga organization like Yoga Alliance or the International Association of Yoga Therapists. We as yoga people, at the very least, should be making decisions and policy from a place of yoga ethics. Full stop. That is my premise for today. And I think Yoga Alliance, even with their flaws, is making a run towards that. I can see what they're doing, and I can see that they're trying to do this. So let's talk about, what does that mean to have decisions and policies rooted in yoga ethics, both personal and the collective well-being of our community. So when we look at this, we're really looking at one of our first yamas, one of our first 10 commandments of yoga, the yamas and niyamas, basically ahimsa. How can we have non-harming towards the individuals in our organizations, towards ourselves? Non-harming even starts with your relationship with you. How can we have non-harming towards the people we serve? And in the case of Yoga Alliance and International Association of Yoga Therapists, they have so many schools. So many people have put their livelihood and put all of their eggs into the basket that we were told, if you create a school in Yoga Alliance or International Association of Yoga Therapists, you can count on that being there for some time. You can count on, you made this your livelihood, we're not going to abandon you. So that's number one, is, are the leaders of our organizations thinking about all the stakeholders? Are they reaching out to stakeholders like we just saw with Yoga Alliance before they make big policy changes or big directional shifts in the strategic plan? I think the community of yoga has to work together to decide what is ethical for us, what does make sense. And, I was talking to Leslie Kaminoff the other day, and it really, really hit home for me the way he described it. And I want to give him credit for this, but I absolutely 100% believe in it. When you're a leader in a yoga organization and you're working from a hierarchy, you're up on your little pedestal. And many of you know that I've been up on that little pedestal for about 6 years. I was on the board for International Association of Yoga Therapists. And it's very easy to get up there and make these policy changes, not really thinking down the line, how is this going to affect the CIAYTs who've invested $10,000 to $20,000 or more in becoming a CIAYT, the person who is waiting for IAYT to help them find a career path forward, as well as doing it on their own. Because as we know, most people have to find their way through the career path and make personal relationships and get out there to get a job. But I think there's always been this hope that I'm investing in IAYT and they're going to be here for me. So as we're sitting up on our glass towers, are we thinking of all those CIYTs that have been in it with us for so long? Are we thinking of the 70 plus schools that had worked so hard to get accredited to become an 800-hour program? Because we keep saying that's the gold standard. That's what people need to do, is get 800 hours of yoga therapy plus a 200-hour teacher trainer, 1,000 hours total. This is the gold standard. And over 70 schools got accredited and bought into that. Are we thinking about them? Are we thinking about the general public that is going to be served by 800-hour people versus 300-hour people? Like, what are the manifestations as this unfolds? And really talking to each one of those groups and being in relationship with each one of those groups. I would argue that IAYT, Yoga Alliance, and any other big yoga organization, or maybe even your small yoga organization, needs to have stakeholders that come in and speak for their people and say, look, had you thought about how this might impact us? Did you know that this is going to take away our livelihood? Did you know we've supported you for up to 20 years now, or 15 years now, and we feel like you're cutting us just out of the blue, like, oh, we don't need you anymore. So I think number one, making sure that as the leaders make decisions, they're thinking of Ahimsa, they're thinking of what are the actual ramifications for people on the ground. And talk to them. We have so much knowledge. We have so many people that have been trying to get into this hospital or that wellness system, this insurance company. That person has tried to get licensing in their state. We have so much knowledge within our community that needs to be brought forward in task forces, in town halls. We need to take all of this knowledge that we all have and basically codify it and put it in categories, bring it to our leaders, say, hey, here's the things that are working, here's the things that are not working, and then make decisions from the bottom up. If we make decisions from the bottom up with yoga ethics in mind, Ahimsa, we're not going to harm our community, we're not going to harm the general public, we're not going to harm each other. But we need to work together to solve a really hard problem, which is that yoga therapy has had a really, really hard time busting into Western medical for a number of reasons. So first of all, I want to say not everybody wants to be in Western medical. There are so many yoga therapists I know that are very happy with their personal practice, and they actually don't want to be in Western medical. So I want to let all of you know that I see you, I honor you, and I'm actually one of those people. I don't actually want to only have 10 minutes with a client. I don't want to be told that I can't use a hand gesture or that humming is not allowed. I don't want to practice in that way. So I'm actually in the other camp, but I do have a lot to say about, as we move forward into Western healthcare, which I hope we will, we have to be realistic. And that's where these people on the ground come in that can say, okay, here's what was going on. I had the job. I was doing perfectly well. Everybody was loving the classes. And then a nurse practitioner who also had a 200-hour yoga teacher training certificate, they decided to give her the job because they felt she would be a safer yoga teacher. She's got a license as a nurse practitioner, and therefore that license overrides any safety that we could provide as a yoga therapist or a yoga teacher, which we all know that's actually not true, that the more skill, the more education you have in breathing techniques and in the contraindications around meditation, actually we are safer. There's some medical knowledge that maybe we need to get up to speed on if we're going to be in the medical system. I will agree with that. But basically, people are saying on the ground that their jobs are being taken away and replaced by people who have much less experience in the area of yoga. Another thing that's happening that I've been hearing people on the ground say, they had their yoga job in their hospital or in their healthcare system. Everything was going well. Life was good. And then all of a sudden they were asked to start making videos. Could you make videos on balance? Could you make videos on this? Could you make videos on that to build this archive, which sounds wonderful. Of course, we all want people to have access to that information, but the goal is to get rid of the yoga teacher or the yoga therapist to just have the video library. So these are real situations on the ground that we need to figure out what is the solution, because the healthcare system is very, very powerful and they know what they want. They know how they like it. They want it to fit into their box. And if we're going to go in that direction, we have to be very aware that we are going to have to fit into that box. They are not going to fit into our box. These fantasies that we have about spending an hour with the client and doing a full assessment and then putting the SOAP notes into the digital electronic record keeping system. And then everybody on the team is going to love yoga therapy. It's actually hard out there. If you talk to people, I've interviewed so many people for this podcast. If you actually talk to people, they will tell you the hard parts of trying to integrate with Western medicine. And in fact, a lot of them have quit. They have tried to do it for many years. They kept getting roadblocked. They kept getting told that they weren't enough, that yoga therapy isn't enough. And, some of those people have come back and said, well, then we need to get licensing. If we're actually going to try to be in the healthcare system, we have to get licensing. I don't disagree with that. If people want to be in the healthcare system and would like to bill through insurance and they want to be in there, probably licensing is the way to go for them. But I'm also going to argue there's a huge part of yoga therapy that doesn't actually want to go in that direction, not because we're against licensing, but because the holistic nature of the practice of yoga therapy and the lifestyle of yoga therapy, we don't really want to bring it down to, the way we have to do it in a certain number of minutes. We actually want to express it in its fullness and keep it very, very connected to Mother India and to keep it in a way intact so that we can practice in a way that honors the ancient traditions. And I think this brings us right back to ethical decision-making as individuals, as leaders, as yoga organizations. What is our core value here? Is our core value more of a top-down hierarchical approach, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It has made society progress in many, many ways. But the top-down hierarchy looks more like there are people in power above us. They don't actually know yoga. They don't know yoga philosophy. They don't know yogic ways of living. They see us as potentially a modality that could be integrated into their systems, but they're going to do it from their lens. If they are an MD or a nurse or really any kind of healthcare provider, psychologist, they're going to take it from their lens and add some of our yoga tools into that. And the real question is, and it's already happening, by the way, but the real question is, do we as individuals and or as a community, do we agree to that? Because some would say, well, Amy, it's happening anyway. We might as well get our foot in the door and be part of it, that decision-making process. They're not going to let us be part of the decision-making process. We're going to come with our little basket of yoga tools, and they're going to say, here's how you can practice, and here's what we want out of your basket, and here's what we don't want out of your basket. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's better than nothing. Well, after talking to Leslie, and I've felt this way for a long time, I actually don't think it's better than nothing. For me and the way that I want to express the holistic nature of yoga therapy as it came from India, and to honor these ancient traditions and to not cherry pick, I actually don't think it's better than nothing. I stand in our scope of practice that we have so much we can offer. And we may not be ready to be licensed. We may not be ready to be part of Western healthcare. but we actually have something even more beautiful to bring. And, where the rubber hits the road is, well, then how am I going to make a living? And I would ask you to consider this. How many of us are actually hired by healthcare systems and making a living? Is that actually not realistic? Is that a pipe dream at this point? I'm not saying it could never happen, but right now, that is not happening. So then to kind of give away a bunch of our best resources and say, okay, everybody else, you can go take those, doctors, nurses, fine, have all of our good stuff, and we're going to train you how to do it. I'm going to argue we have just cut the foundation out from underneath ourselves. We've just sold out. And I, for one, am not going to be part of that. I think there are wonderful ways to do it based on Ahimsa, based on community, based on staying connected to the ancient teachings. There's wonderful ways we can do that. For example, this idea that we're going to train a licensed healthcare practitioner with 200 or even 300 hours of training, and then they're going to refer back to us. They're going to see how wonderful yoga therapy is, and they're going to refer back to us. I'm sorry, but they're not. They're not. I wish that was true, and I wish they were somehow going to then pull us into the medical system, but I do not believe that's going to happen, and I don't believe we have any evidence that that's going to happen. Have we even done one study to show that that's going to happen? It's probably, in my opinion, not going to happen. So, we need to have these discussions as a community and talk about what's realistic, what's pipe dreams, where do we fit, all with the foundation of Ahimsa. Have we done questionnaires asking our members, asking our member schools, how will these decisions affect you? I don't think we've done any of that. I think we need to go all the way back to the drawing board, and we need to really understand what is our values, where are we coming from, are we taking care of one another, are we using a community-based approach to determine where to go next, or are we looking at that top-down hierarchy model, right? It's the top-down hierarchy of, ooh, let's go chase this, because they might give us some crumbs, or it's the bottom-up community model of who are we, what do we want. Yoga therapy has changed so much in the past, 15 years. It's not what it was even 10 years ago. Where are we going together? What do we want together? What are the values? And how can we move forward in a way that retains the integrity of yoga therapy, the ancient teachings, and the connection to India? And I'm not saying that we have to bring Hinduism into yoga therapy. Don't get me wrong. My teachers, TKV Deskachar and family, it is a secular humanism that they're talking about. It's a secular way of bringing yoga to people who want to benefit from yoga. Patanjali agrees with that also, that we can do this in a way that has spiritual components, but not religion. That you could be a Christian, you could be a Jewish person, you could be a Muslim, you could be an atheist, you could be an agnostic, and all of these people could benefit from the power of yoga and yoga therapy. So I think that's what we need to hold intact as our guide and make decisions about our future together. Where does this fit in? And I'm going to give you some ideas of where I think it fits in, because I don't know why nobody ever talks about what I'm about to say. I did a poll on our new Facebook group called The Future of Yoga Therapy. If you're on Facebook, you can jump into our Facebook group. We invite everyone, people who agree with us, people who don't agree with us. It's just a community forum to introduce yourself, to talk about the work you do, to talk about the obstacles that you've come into contact with. This is part of that community data gathering that I was talking about, that we want to hear from everybody and what are your experiences and what worked and what didn't work. So we've got this new Facebook page, and I put a poll in there, and I put 25 different ways that people work, from working at the Veterans Administration to private practice to wellness centers to hospitals to schools, K through 12, universities. And I had people vote for how they're making their living. And of course, many of us have these, what we're calling portfolio careers, meaning we have about 4 or 5 different streams of income. So many people were checking more than one box because they make their income from more than one way. But it was very clear to me that the way people are making their living right now is private practice, far and above the others. Private practice online, private practice in person. That is where we're at. So let's take that into consideration. What does that actually mean for us? What do we need to do to help people do private practice better, to get more referrals? If that's what's been working for people for the last 15 years, why aren't we as an organization working from the grassroots up to say, oh, private practice seems to be working for a whole lot of people. What can we as a community, what can we as an organization help to do to help people have a better private practice? And can we be honest about that as a community, that all of these golden jobs that we all want, paying $100,000 a year with healthcare and benefits and retirement at the hospital, don't exist? Like, they just don't exist. So everybody's thinking that, oh, I want that. But if it's not there, let's just get really honest. Right now, private practice is how people are making their living, and plenty of people are making a good living doing that. But what could the organization and what could people in the organization do on that grassroots level to come together and share information about private practice? How do you get referrals? What are the obstacles you're facing? How could we do it better? How could we support one another? Is there a network that we can use to support one another? Like, that is such fertile ground for promoting the field of yoga therapy going forward. It's all relationship based. It's all based in yoga philosophy, and yoga is relationship. Like, to me, that's the bottom up approach. That's the, okay, here's the reality of where we are and what's happening. Where can we do more of the things that are working and do less of the things that aren't working? And that is very different, in my opinion, than what some organizations have chosen to do, which is the top-down approach. We know better. You all just don't understand. We've got a master plan. Trust us. Oh, I'm sorry, we sold you out. Like, no. That is not yogic. It is not based in yoga ethics. And it's interesting because a lot of the people, and myself included, when we get to the top of some organization and we're actually in a position of power and leadership, I don't think we actually take it seriously enough. I took it seriously and I did the best job I could. But I don't know that every day I was thinking about the yoga therapist on the ground who's having trouble in Kaiser Permanente with their new boss that just told them the nurse practitioner is going to take over their classes. Like, I want to say I was thinking about that person, but I didn't even know that person existed. As the leader of organizations, it's hard to talk to all the people on the ground. And I was very aware of this. And I tried to talk to other people about, hey, are you really including the people on the ground in these decisions? Have you actually talked to them? And most of the time, people have not talked to the people on the ground. Hence, the need for this Facebook group that we started. It's called, again, The Future of Yoga Therapy. And our goal is to talk to one another, to make connections, to see who's in your state, to determine if we want to go towards licensing, to determine if we don't want to be in Western medical, to determine if we should have little state organizations, because each state is a little bit different. Should we have state conferences? Whatever we want to do together. I think the first step is to connect to introduce ourselves to one another, to become communities, mini communities within the larger communities, to form task forces and ways to communicate with the people at the top so that they're actually getting accurate information from the ground. I mean, my gosh, I'm starting to sound like a military leader, right? That yes, there are people who are going to make decisions up there, but how are they going to get the information from the front lines about what the people are really feeling? And what is the morale like out here? And how many jobs are there? And how can we support each other? So that's really where I'm at right now with all of the craziness that's going on in the yoga world. I feel that Yoga Alliance has done a pretty good job in telling us where they want to go in the next 7 years. They're asking us for our connection, our communication. I think IAYT, I'm hoping they're well on their way to making similar decisions. I have not seen it yet. I think we're in a bit of a mess right now with IAYT. And again, it's September 25th. This could clear up quite quickly, and I hope that it does. But I would ask our leaders in IAYT to come get to know your community, to step down out of the ivory tower and to come into the Facebook group and to listen to us and to get to know us. Help us find jobs. Help us find solutions. Talk to the people that have been here to support for decades and form task forces. I guarantee you we have many, many, many ideas that probably the people who are in the policy making and decision making have not thought of. And I have to give them all credit. Most of them are volunteers. And I'm sure they didn't think that they signed up for so much work, the work that I'm describing. I actually know how that feels. And I have a lot of empathy for that you sign up as a volunteer thinking that you're going to, do a few board meetings a year and it turns into almost a full-time job. Like I am right there with you, been there, done that. It's painful. And I think that's what the job requires. I think those people who can volunteer to be at that level, they have a certain level of security, that are willing to come and be in relationship with their community on the ground, be more like a populist person that is interested in how do we solve this problem together. I guess we might need to ask people to be volunteers that have that kind of time and energy and focus. And again, I have all the compassion in the world for all the volunteers at IAYT. And we need you to pay attention. We need you to consider us. We need you to be here with us actively on the ground, and it's going to take time. And I think all of us appreciate the leadership. I know getting these letters from Yoga Alliance and seeing how IAYT is beginning to react to our requests and coming into our Facebook group and listening to us and being with us, I think we're on to something positive, and I think wonderful things are going to happen. I think, it hasn't been very pleasant, but we're headed in the right direction together. And, it's going to take more time. So we have to befriend each other. We have to be in this together. If anybody can do it, I think we can do it together. And for all of those people listening, just come into the Facebook group, come into the Future of Yoga Therapy. Introduce yourself, put a picture of yourself up. We want to get to know you. We want to understand your obstacles, your trials, your tribulations, your joys, your celebrations, how you became successful, what's working for you, what's not working for you. I think if we all start to share that information on a grassroots level and give each other ideas about what is working and not working, I think we're going to come up with solutions for our field so beautifully. And I think we'll move forward together. All right, everyone. It's a little bit shorter episode today, but I just wanted to invite you all to this new Facebook group. In 1 week, we have over 800 people that have joined, all interested in the future of yoga therapy. And once again, I want to say thank you to all of those in leadership for the Yoga Alliance and the International Association of Yoga Therapists. We know how hard it is. We know how much work it is. We're grateful that so many of you are willing to volunteer and spend your life force on this. And we want you to come and be with us. Yes, and. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to the Yoga Therapy Hour each week. We're building a community here, and we'd love to hear your ideas about how you would like to build more community with us. Feel free to email us at welcome@theoptimalstate.com and give us your ideas on ways that we could be of service to you and build more community. We'd love to hear from you. Again, welcome@theoptimalstate. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
A special thank you to our team here at Optimal State. We are truly a global family. George Mantuan, one of our executive producers. Adam Satchel, senior media producer and sound engineer from the Philippines. Krishna Panchal, a producer from Canada. Modupe Abdullahi, who does the show notes and is an editor for us from Nigeria. And Peter Morley, who wrote and produced the music for this show, who lives in Australia. Find more about Peter's work at www.zenmusic.biz. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.